The revelations unfolding in the bold and the beautiful for Friday, February 27th, carry the weight of quiet detonations. Moments that may not explode all at once, but instead fracture relationships from within, splintering trust into shards too sharp to ignore. At the center of this gathering storm stands Ivy Forrester, a woman who has convinced herself that she is acting out of loyalty and protection, even as her choices drift further into manipulation. She senses it now with a clarity that unsettles her. The careful design she constructed to separate Elektra from Will is beginning to wobble. Control, once firmly in her grasp, is slipping. If she does not tighten her hold, everything she has orchestrated may collapse and expose not only her intentions but the fragile moral justifications she has clung to. At the beach house, the ocean outside roars with indifferent persistence, waves crashing against the shore as though echoing the turmoil inside Will Spencer. He has just confessed to Melissa Dillon what he witnessed, the kiss between R.J. Forrester and Elektra Forrester, a moment that replayed in his mind with merciless precision. The memory stings not only because of betrayal, but because of what it reveals about his own hesitation. Will is furious with himself. He traces the path of missteps, wondering where he faltered, where he allowed distance to creep into his relationship with Elektra. Anger toward RJ burns hot, but the deeper wound is self-directed. He believes he should have fought harder, spoken sooner, recognized the cracks before they widened into chasms. Dillon listens carefully, her expression soft yet shadowed by a complexity of emotions she dares not fully reveal. She senses opportunity beneath the sorrow, a shifting dynamic that might pull Will closer to her orbit. Yet she also feels a pang of guilt. Her presence at the beach house that day, her proximity, her quiet companionship, did it contribute to the unraveling of Will's romance? She wonders whether she inadvertently became a catalyst, whether her empathy was misread or whether she subconsciously allowed it to blur boundaries. Regret flickers across her thoughts, but it does not overpower her desire to comfort him. If anything, it intensifies it. As Will speaks, his voice heavy with disbelief, Dillon feels her protective instincts surge. She may gently suggest that he does not deserve this humiliation, that no one deserves to watch the person they love choose another so easily. The image of Elektra's kiss haunts him, and Dillon does not hesitate to interpret it harshly. To her, Elektra moved on too quickly, discarding Will as though their bond had been disposable. That perception, whether fair or not, becomes a powerful narrative Dillon can use to strengthen her connection with him. The more she frames Will as wronged, the more she positions herself as refuge. And so, in the quiet intimacy of that beach house, grief and opportunity intertwine. Dillon's comfort lingers longer than necessary. Her words carry warmth, reassurance, a promise of stability in contrast to the chaos he has endured. There is a possibility, subtle but electric, that this closeness may tip into something more. A kiss born not of strategy but of shared vulnerability could shift everything. Yet beneath the tenderness lies ambition. Dillon does not only want to console Will, she wants to claim the space Elektra has vacated. Across town, R.J. Forrester burns with indignation of his own. In his eyes, Will's failures wounded Elektra long before any kiss took place. R.J. views himself not as an interloper but as a rescuer. Someone who stepped forward when Will faltered. The emotional landscape is painted in stark contrasts for him. Loyalty versus neglect, courage versus hesitation. He cannot forgive Will for letting Elektra feel unwanted, and that anger sharpens his resolve to pursue her more openly. To RJ, the kiss was not a betrayal, it was an awakening. Ivy observes RJ's fury with keen calculation. She sees in it a lever she can pull. Encouraging him to chase Elektra again serves her broader objective. If RJ proves steadfast and attentive, Elektra may recognize the kind of devotion she deserves. Ivy frames her interference as protective, almost maternal. She believes Elektra needs guidance, someone to steer her toward a healthier relationship. In Ivy's mind, Will represents instability, uncertainty, a future clouded by doubt. RJ, by contrast, appears decisive and unwavering. Yet Ivy's confidence is punctured by an unexpected complication, Daphne Rose. Daphne is not naive, nor is she easily intimidated. She has already seen more than Ivy anticipated, including the incriminating letter Ivy secretly stole. That single act of theft threatens to unravel the entire scheme. Daphne's outrage simmers just beneath the surface, and it is only a matter of time before it boils over. When Daphne confronts Ivy, the tension crackles with unspoken accusations. Ivy attempts to assert control, warning Daphne to remain silent, to keep the matter from Elektra and anyone else who might expose the truth. But threats are fragile tools. They rely on fear, and Daphne is fueled more by indignation than by intimidation. The moral line Ivy crossed by stealing that letter becomes impossible to ignore. For all her claims of protection, she has engaged in deception. Ivy's internal conflict intensifies. She genuinely believes she is safeguarding Elektra from heartbreak. Yet she recognizes the cost of her actions. Every lie layers another burden upon her conscience. She convinces herself that the ends justify the means. That Elektra's long-term happiness outweighs temporary dishonesty. Still, the specter of exposure looms large. If Daphne speaks, Ivy's image as devoted sister and ally will shatter. The fragile equilibrium among these characters teeters dangerously. Will and Elektra remain emotionally entangled despite the growing interference around them. Ivy's manipulations ripple outward, creating misunderstandings and deepening wounds. Dylan's quiet maneuvering introduces another axis of tension. While RJ's determination adds urgency to the competition, Elektra herself stands at the crossroads, torn between loyalty to what once was and curiosity about what might be. She senses the currents pulling at her from all directions. RJ's steadfast pursuit, Will's wounded pride, Ivy's protective influence, and the unspoken disapproval that hangs in the air. She may not yet know the extent of Ivy's interference, but she feels the pressure to choose wisely, to avoid repeating patterns of pain. What makes this unraveling so compelling is not merely the romantic entanglement but the psychological undercurrents. Ivy's fear of losing control reflects a deeper anxiety about relevance and influence. Dylan's comfort is shaded by ambition. RJ's anger masks insecurity. Will's self-reproach reveals vulnerability that others can exploit. Each character believes they are acting in defense of love, yet their methods collide in destructive ways. As the drama advances, the consequences of Ivy's choices promise to intensify. Her effort to divide Will and Elektra may succeed temporarily, but every secret carries the seed of revelation. Daphne's knowledge becomes a ticking clock. One disclosure could expose Ivy's theft and coercion, igniting backlash that eclipses her original intentions. Meanwhile, Will and Elektra are far from finished. The bond they shared cannot be erased by a single kiss or by whispered encouragement from others. Yet the obstacles in their path multiply. Misunderstandings deepen, pride hardens, and outside interference muddies what once felt simple. The Friday episode foreshadows even darker complications ahead. Ivy's mission to protect Elektra transforms into a labyrinth of deceit. Dylan's potential kiss with Will could shift allegiances irreversibly. RJ's unwavering pursuit might win him Elektra's trust or push her further into confusion. And Daphne's outrage threatens to ignite a scandal that none of them are prepared to confront. In the end, the tragedy lies not in a single act of betrayal but in the accumulation of small choices. Each justified in the moment, each compounding the next. Ivy stands on the brink of losing everything she hoped to preserve. Will grapples with regret that may propel him into new arms. Elektra faces a future clouded by conflicting loyalties. And Dylan, watching carefully, waits for the precise moment when comfort transforms into conquest. The waves outside the beach house continue their relentless rhythm, indifferent witnesses to human folly. But within those walls, and throughout the Forrester and Spencer worlds, the emotional tide is rising. Secrets press against the surface, and when they break, they will not simply wash away. They will leave scars, reshaping every relationship in their wake. The latest developments surrounding the bold and the beautiful suggest that what once appeared to be a triumphant romantic reunion between Katie Logan Spencer and Bill Spencer may, in fact, be the fragile beginning of another unraveling. Their remarriage, sealed with vows that carried both history and hope, was framed as redemption, a second chance born from lessons painfully learned. Yet beneath the elegance of the ceremony and the grandeur of Bill's wedding gift, there lingered unresolved tensions, unspoken doubts, and the dangerous weight of expectation. Now, as cracks begin to form in the very foundation Bill built for Katie's new future, the question no longer feels hypothetical. It feels urgent. Could their marriage crumble just as the fashion brand he gifted her begins to falter before it ever truly finds its footing? When Bill presented Katie with her own fashion house as a wedding gift, the gesture seemed almost mythic in scale. It was not merely a store or a business venture, it was a declaration. Bill was not just offering financial backing, he was offering belief. He told her, in actions louder than any vow, that she deserved a stage of her own. The project was infused with romance and ambition, an intertwined promise that their marriage would not exist in the shadow of the past but would blaze toward a brighter, independent future. Katie, long accustomed to doubting herself in the orbit of powerful personalities, felt something shift within her. She wanted to believe in that future. She wanted to believe in herself. Bill encouraged her relentlessly, painting vivid pictures of what Logan could become under her leadership. He spoke of innovation, exclusivity, of redefining the brand with Katie at the helm. In those early days, his confidence was contagious. Katie felt lifted by it, almost transformed by the magnitude of his faith. She imagined a partnership in which love and business could coexist harmoniously, each strengthening the other. For a moment, it seemed possible that they had both evolved beyond the mistakes that once tore them apart. But ambition can be a double-edged sword, especially when it is tethered to fragile trust. The momentum behind Katie's new fashion brand begins to falter before it truly gains traction. Delays, unexpected setbacks, creative disagreements. Each obstacle chips away at the optimism that once fueled the project. What was meant to symbolize renewal slowly morphs into a source of pressure. Eric Forrester had initially promised to support Katie by helping her launch a special debut collection. His involvement lent credibility and gravitas to the endeavor. With Eric's name attached, the brand felt destined for success. His mentorship suggested stability, continuity, and a bridge between legacy and innovation. Yet when Eric ultimately decides to return his focus to Forrester Creations, the shift reverberates with more force than anyone anticipated. His withdrawal feels less like a practical decision and more like abandonment. Katie tries to maintain composure, but privately she feels the ground shifting beneath her feet. Without Eric's guidance, the launch risks losing both prestige and direction. Doubt creeps in. She questions whether she was naive to believe that everything would align so perfectly. The pressure of proving herself intensifies. The fashion house that once symbolized empowerment now threatens to become a monument to failure. Bill, watching the venture wobble, struggles with his own reaction. He invested not only financially but emotionally. The project was an extension of his love, a public testament to his devotion. Seeing it falter feels personal. Frustration simmers beneath his carefully controlled exterior. At some point, it may boil over. He may argue that hiring Eric was a mistake from the beginning. That entrusting their future to someone whose loyalties were never guaranteed was reckless. In Bill's mind, Eric's return to Forrester Creations was inevitable. He might insist that he saw the risk all along. To Katie, such criticism would feel like betrayal. It was Bill who fueled her belief that she could manage this undertaking. He encouraged her to think big, to embrace the challenge, to step boldly into a role she had never fully occupied before. If he now suggests that her choices were misguided, the implication will cut deeply. It will not simply be about business, it will be about trust. She may turn his logic against him, reminding him that he was the architect of this vision. If the brand collapses, can he truly absolve himself? As tension mounts, their arguments may evolve from strategic disagreements into something more corrosive. Old wounds resurface with alarming ease. Katie may begin to question whether she rushed into remarriage, whether the emotional intensity of reconciliation clouded her judgment. The speed with which they reunited and married might suddenly seem reckless. Was she so eager to reclaim what they once had that she overlooked the unresolved fractures beneath the surface? Another layer complicates the turmoil. Brooke Logan Forrester. Katie's relationship with her sister has always been entwined with Bill's presence. History has proven how easily boundaries blur, how loyalty can fracture under romantic strain. If the fashion venture begins to generate family conflict, if Brooke becomes entangled in criticism or becomes a perceived rival in influence, Katie may find herself revisiting painful memories. She might wonder whether accepting Bill's grand gesture created a ripple effect that strained her bond with Brooke all over again. If the brand's struggles intensify family divisions, Katie could begin to trace the source back to that fateful wedding gift. What if, she might ask herself in quiet moments of introspection, she had chosen a simpler path? What if she had focused solely on rebuilding trust rather than attaching their reconciliation to an ambitious public enterprise? Would her relationship with Brooke remain steadier? Would her marriage feel less burdened by expectation? Bill, for his part, cannot easily separate love from pride. He believes in grand gestures because they define him. Offering Katie the fashion house was consistent with his nature, bold, dramatic, transformative. Yet when that gesture fails to yield success, it threatens his identity as provider and visionary. If Katie begins to resent him for the pressure, he may feel misunderstood. He may insist that he only wanted to empower her. The clash between intention and outcome becomes a breeding ground for bitterness. Resentment rarely arrives in explosive bursts, it seeps in gradually. A sharp comment here, a defensive retort there. Silence grows heavier between them. Shared meals become negotiations rather than celebrations. The very symbol of their new beginning becomes a reminder of shared miscalculation. The possibility that their marriage could fracture under this strain no longer feels far-fetched. It feels tragically plausible. Yet amid the tension, affection still flickers. Their history is not easily erased. Katie and Bill have weathered storms before, endured betrayals and reconciliations that would have destroyed lesser bonds. there remains a lingering tenderness. A familiarity that draws them back toward each other even as frustration pushes them apart. The question is whether that lingering love is strong enough to withstand yet another test. Katie may reach a point where she confronts the core of her fear. That she attached her self-worth to a gift rather than to her own resilience. If the fashion house falters, does it define her? Or does it simply mark a misstep on a longer journey? Bill, too, must confront whether his need to fix, to grandly provide, sometimes overshadows the quieter support Katie truly requires. The future of their marriage hangs in delicate balance. If they choose to assign blame rather than share accountability, the fissures may widen irreparably. But if they can acknowledge their mutual role in both the dream and the disappointment, the setback could become an opportunity for deeper understanding. For now, uncertainty reigns. The fashion brand teeters. Family tensions simmer. Doubt shadows their once glowing reunion. The bold and the beautiful continues to weave these threads into a tapestry of emotional consequence. Reminding viewers that love, no matter how enduring, is never immune to pressure. As new revelations unfold, Bill and Katie may discover that the true test of their marriage is not whether the fashion house succeeds, but whether they can stand united when it does not. In a world defined by power, ambition, and legacy, their greatest challenge may be choosing partnership over pride. Whether they rise stronger or fracture once more remains to be seen. But one truth is certain: the path ahead will not be gentle.